This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Hiya, curious minds. Welcome to CC with BB. Connecting with Coincidence with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. That's me. This is the only radio show in the world dedicated to the study of coincidences, synchronicity, and serendipity. We are coming to you through X-Zone Broadcast Network, located in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and mighty cold right now, broadcasting all over the world. One of the most important questions from modern science and all humanity now is the relationship between mind and brain. Does brain really produce consciousness? I'm a psychiatrist. I help people with medications and psychotherapy. So I work with both mind and brain and get a chance to try to answer this question. With coincidences, you need your mind to recognize them, and you need your brain to talk about them. Synchronicity spoken here. Remember that coincidences alert us to the mysterious hiding in plain sight. In other words, coincidences alert us to possible causal connections not recognized by modern science. Put connecting with coincidence, the phrase connecting with coincidence, in your search engine and find my Psychology Today blog, my website, my social media site. And would you like to know how sensitive to coincidences you are? Take the Weird Coincidence Survey on my website. Today we have a humdinger of an interview, ladies and gentlemen, a humdinger. Our guest today is Roderick Main, and I've been an admirer of Roderick's work for many years now. He is, to my mind, the preeminent theorist of synchronicity within Jungian thinkers. He is a Jungian, and boy, to me, is he a Jungian. He has studied synchronicity very thoroughly from Jung's perspective. How does Jung think about coincidences, synchronicity? How does he put ideas together? How does he sharpen them? And where are some of his problems? Where are some of Jung's problems with understanding synchronicity? Jung was the originator of the term, as most of you know. He came up with the idea of synchronicity and labeled it. And the way he labeled it probably came from some Chinese thinking that he was exposed to, meaning that synchronicity refers to things falling together in time. Synchro, together, time, chrono. Falling together in time. And to read about how Jung lived his life, you could see that synchronicity and coincidences played a strong part in just how he managed his thinking and responses in everyday life. He saw nature and one's surrounding environment as a living matrix of potential synchronistic meaning that could illuminate the human sphere. He attended to sudden or unusual movements or appearances of animals, flocks of birds, the wind, storms, the sudden louder lapping of the lake outside the window of his consulting room, and similar phenomena as possessing possible symbolic relevance for the parallel unfolding of internal psychological realities. He was constantly aware of connections between mind and external environment. Roderick Main has analyzed Jung's writing on coincidences and organized what he found Jung had written in Synchronicity and Jung's critique of modern Western culture in The Rupture of Time, as well as Jung on synchronicity and the paranormal, where he thoroughly explicated Jung's writings on synchronicity. In his book, Revelations of Chance, Roderick Main goes on to try to show how synchronicity and spirituality are related to each other. How does synchronicity tell us more and more about our relationship with things beyond what we see with our five senses, what we can pick up in ordinary reality? What are the hints, the revelations of chance, that's that great title of this book, that tell us something about something more going on, a direct route to spirituality? This approach, this way of thinking, is accompanied by a great scholarly mind. Roderick Main is a great Jungian scholar focusing on synchronicity, and it's a great pleasure to have him on this program. He works at the University of Essex in UK, where he is a professor at the Center for Psychoanalytic Studies and the director of the Center for Myth Studies. He has a an MA in classics from the University of Oxford and a PhD in religious studies from Lancaster University. He thinks so clearly and so well. In our next segment, we will have the opportunity to listen to a man who understands synchronicity from a Jungian perspective better than most people on Earth.
Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine such as hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining rooms can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you visit, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic downtown Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, old Florida cuisine at its best.
Welcome back to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence, the only radio show in the world dedicated to the study and discussion of synchronicity. Our guest today is Roderick Main, a preeminent Jungian scholar, and it's such a pleasure to finally get to talk to you, Roderick, after reading so much of what you've written. Welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Bernie, and thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. How did you get interested as a religious scholar, as a Jungian, in being so thorough in your explication of Jung's thought on synchronicity?
Well, I became interested in synchronicity, I suppose, before I became a scholar of the subject, and partly through synchronicities. I'd been interested in unusual phenomena, psychical research, and so on. After I'd finished my degree at the University of Oxford, and I was looking for a way of getting further into the subject. And someone suggested that I might explore Jung's concept of synchronicity. I was aware of Jung's work. I was slightly aware of synchronicity, but I hadn't explored it.
What were some of the experiences that set you up for being interested in it?
Well, I suppose there was one pivotal one, really, which was after it had been suggested to me that I might be interested in this, I took the step of going to a library and getting volume 8 of Jung's collected works, which contains the relevant essay and the essay on synchronicity. I went to, then I sort of put it aside and went out, had some other plans for the day. Whilst I was out with a friend who was kind of interested in these areas as well, we ended up going to a restaurant, a fish restaurant, and we're sort of talking about coincidence and so on. And just as we were about to cut into our fish, there was a TV program on in the restaurant showing a film, an old film starring Robert Mitchum, in which he sort of harpooned a fish, and it was a very minor coincidence, but I sort of registered it and was mildly amused. Returned to my flat and started reading the essay which I got out that morning, and discovered that Jung starts off his work on synchronicity by describing a series of incidents, a series of putative coincidences involving fish, a whole series of them. So that was sort of a coincidence with my earlier coincidence, if you like, and this sort of got me gripped in a way.
There had to be something about your mind that was alert to this way of thinking.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'd been interested in sort of unusual phenomena, I suppose. I'd been, despite my sort of education, in a sort of quite a sort of a rational mode, if you like. Yeah. I'd been interested in phenomena that were suggested there was something else going on that sort of subverted expectations and transgressed the usual boundaries. And I hadn't had a great number of such experiences, but sufficient just to make me deeply interested, I suppose.
Good. Yeah. Okay. So after the fishy incident, then what?
Well, I sort of became interested and started exploring it informally, and then after a while, I decided I would see whether I could pursue this more formally, and apply to do a PhD at a couple of. I applied at a couple of places, and eventually I was accepted at the Lancaster University, and I undertook a PhD in the Department of Religious Studies, focusing predominantly but not exclusively on Jung's theory. But that was where I sort of acquired my deeper knowledge of Jung and my deeper sort of understanding of synchronicity. And the work that I did for my PhD is mainly the work that found its way eventually into my book Revelations of Chance.
Ah, was that Pleskett story part of your dissertation, your PhD?
Absolutely, yes. This is a phenomenal collection of coincidences. I mean, the total collection that he's got of his own experiences numbers, probably several hundreds. And he shared a substantial amount of this material with me. It came to me via some other people that we knew in common, and he allowed me to use it, to analyze it as part of my PhD, which I did.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you did. It's not an easy thing to read, that description. I've had to go after it 4 or 5 times,
Yes,
and I've just finished it. I mean, I went through it in more detail. There's something that's disconcerting or off-throwing, and it's because it's a different kind of writing than most people, including me, are used to. But you were able to see lots of themes in that and be able to make some judgments about the connections between his experiences and spirituality, at least as he tried to be able to do that. For our audience, I think it would be extremely useful if you would define as best you can, and you did define it in Revelations of Chance, what you mean by spirituality, and then maybe how synchronicity gives us a window onto spirituality.
Yeah, I suppose I was in that work. I was seeking an understanding of spirituality, which was quite broad. I didn't want to tie it down to any particular religious orientation, so I attempted to have quite a broad understanding, and I, in the end, I sort of described it as a sort of a dimension or an aspect of reality, which I was seeing as continuous with the psychic and the physical, and interpenetrating the psychic and the physical, but in some way not reducible to them, and in some way superordinate to them. So that was sort of roughly how I was.
And how would you relate the term consciousness to that definition of spirituality?
Well, I mean, consciousness is a term, obviously, that can be used and is used in lots of different ways. And Jung, for example, uses consciousness in distinction from the unconscious, whereas very often in the literature, in the sorts of areas that we're both interested in, consciousness is used in a much broader sense.
Yes,
in a sense of like a cosmic consciousness, or a sort of a sort of a deeper sense of mind that transcends ordinary human experience, and so on. So in the latter sense, what I mean by spirit, I suppose, would correspond fairly closely to that latter understanding of consciousness.
Yeah, it's a hard question I ask because it's a hard question we're trying to answer just what it is. I think the idea of interpenetrating as well as superordinate are crucial words you're using there to describe something we don't really understand. I use the analogy of dark energy and dark matter to. You see where I'm going with that. That there's a hint of something anomalous. There is something anomalous going on, and we can't explain it in conventional terms, so we have to hypothesize something else. And that something else is consciousness or spirituality or spirit. Both words get stretched a lot. I've been, as you probably saw, trying to develop an idea called the psychosphere, which is kind of the spiritual consciousness, just mostly here on Earth, just because it's more palpable and something that I can get my hands on. But let's go away from the kind of these more general things, which you really touch on back and forth in the Revelations of Chance. You go for it and then come back to it. It's all these different views and perspectives that you try to get on spirituality through the lens of synchronicity. I think it's a wonderful. But let's talk something about. Tell us some of the stories. Particularly, I think the praying mantis one is a good one, and the therapist at the beginning, and maybe another one at the beginning of the book.
Okay. There's several short stories, so I'll tell them all. I mean, they won't take very long. So the first one concerns a professor of biology, Adolf Portman, who was delivering a lecture that he intended to conclude with a story about a praying mantis. And just as he was about to broach this subject in his lecture, a praying mantis flew into the lecture hall through an open window, circled around Portman's head, and landed near the lectern lamp. And this had the effect that the insect's wings cast on the white wall behind Portman a huge shadow in the form of the arms of a praying man. So that's the first coincidence.
That's such a good one, and it's reminiscent of the scarab, obviously.
Yeah.
But nobody had to open the window on that one.
Nobody had to open the window on that one.
Do you happen to know what the response was of the lecturer and the audience?
Well, the anecdote is reported by somebody who was there, the scholar of Gnosticism, Gilles Quispel. But I don't know any more. There are no more details that are given about that particular incident. I mean, I can tell you a sort of follow-up from my own experience to that one before I go on and describe the others, if you like.
Please do.
When I was, this as you'll know, if you have a copy of Revelations of Chance, this mantis ended up on the cover of the book.
Yes,
not very well,
yes.
But well, that was not my decision. That was the publishers who decided to put it there. I think they did a fantastic job. Actually, it's a lovely book cover.
It is.
So the mantis became sort of associated, as it were, with that book. Now, I'd never at the time seen one in the life because we don't get them in the UK, I don't believe. But I was visiting Japan shortly after the book came out, and went to a temple with my family and my mother-in-law, and I was away at one part of the sort of temple complex, and then I saw them sort of interested in something, and I went over, and they were standing around, and there was a praying mantis, which they were watching. So I just went and joined them, and the praying mantis then started very gingerly stepping towards me. So I was watching it, and then suddenly it scuttled up my trouser leg, ran at my sort of body, and sort of came to rest. Sort of over my heart, over my lapel, that sort of area. I was slightly perturbed because in Japanese the praying mantis is called a kamakiri, which is a scythe cut or something. It's the large hands are not seen as praying, but more as sort of weapons for chopping off heads of other insects and so on. So it's slightly disconcerting, but I found that as a first encounter with the praying mantis. I don't know what their general behaviours are, but I found it very strange that it should sort of climb up and sort of scuttle up my trouser leg and land on me in that way. Shortly after this
the book came out, and you've never seen one before.
I've never seen one before. No.
And to me, you consolated the archetype of the praying mantis.
Yes, whatever that. I mean, there's a lot of interesting symbolism associated with the praying mantis, and not all of it is
positive.
As positive as you would like. So.
Well, we're at the end of this segment. Let's continue what that mean and its impact to you in the next segment.
Okay.
Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome back to CC with BB, the only radio show in the world dedicated to synchronicity and coincidences. Our guest today is Roderick Main, preeminent Jungian scholar about synchronicity. And we were just talking about the praying mantis on the cover of his book, The Revelations of Chance, and how that praying mantis was part of the first story in that book, and how Roderick had quite an encounter in Japan with his first praying mantis. What were some of the impacts on you of that praying mantis, not just introducing itself to you, but landing on your heart?
Yeah, I confess I sort of haven't analysed it in any great depth. I mean, the mantis, the association with praying and the connection with sort of spirituality, obviously, is a very positive association, and that seems to cut across quite a lot of cultures. I mean, there's a sort of African tradition. There's a book by Lawrence van der Post, A Mantis Carol, which sort of looks into that. And in I think in the German tradition, Portman was about to use the word because of its resonance in German, Gottesanbeterin, the God worshipper, and so on. So there's a strong sort of spiritual association with it. But of course, mantises are known as the female mantis anyway is known as a sort of a sexual cannibal. So for sort of beheading and devouring its mate after copulation. So there's also quite a negative association there, if one wants to look at it that way. There's and then there are other associations with.
As you mentioned the Japanese version, I until recently thought it was spelled Preying, praying mantis. That it was a predator, and because the first information I had was about chopping off their heads by the female praying mantis.
Yeah.
What else did you have to say there?
Well, I mean, perhaps no more about that than just that, just to sort of tease out that coincidence, Portman's coincidence, my own coincidence, and Jung's famous scarab coincidence. One of the things that they seem to point towards is that there is a deeper connection between the human mind and the natural world beyond the human, as it were. There seemed to be the possibility of these resonances, these parallel meanings expressing themselves within the human mind and its preoccupations and outwardly, which suggests an interconnectedness to nature that is in much of the way we conduct ourselves, I think, is submerged, if not lost. So I think this is one of the things that coincidences in general can do, is they can connect the experiencer more deeply to, in this case, the natural environment. And many of Jung's own personal coincidences, not all of them by any means, but many of them did involve the natural environment. You mentioned quite a few in your introduction.
Yes. In the simplest of all ways of saying it, I think what you and I are doing is trying to help people select out that subset of coincidences that demonstrates that we are connected to other consciousness, the consciousness around us, the consciousness of plants, consciousness of insects and other animals, and just the movement of the world around us is somehow not so separate from us as rational science has tried to be able to tell us.
Yeah. Perhaps I can mention. I mean, in addition to that, there's also some coincidences seem to involve inanimate objects, man-made objects, and the next example in my book is a case, and it's very short. I'll just read it. This concerns the writer Paul Auster, who himself wrote several novels which are very make great use of coincidence. But he recounts that in all his years of driving, he'd only ever had 4 flat tires, and these had occurred in 3 different countries. He says, spread out over a period of about 8 or 9 years. And yet on each occasion, when he had a flat tire, the same person happened to be in the car with him. This was an acquaintance that he saw very rarely and only ever briefly, and in his relationship with whom, he says, there was always an edge of unease and conflict. So I think, here you've got something mechanical or immaterial, inanimate, the car tires sort of puncturing on four separate occasions. It's quite remarkable that it should be the only 4 times, and always just when that person was in the car in all these different contexts.
How do you? I think of the Pauli effect when you tell me that story.
Well, that's right. Many of the coincidences that seem to have characteristics that have led people to use the terminologies of psi or parapsychology. In this case, psychokinesis. There's an effect of mind on matter. You'd think it's the emotional tension that is in some way, some strange way or other, causing the bursting of the tires.
Yes.
Jung himself didn't particularly see it that way. He was more interested in the coincidence. He wasn't looking for a hidden causal mechanism. He didn't think that was a fruitful way forward. He was more interested in the sheer paralleling of these things, of the co-emergence of the psychic state and the physical events, and what that might tell us about might reveal about some sort of meaning, which maybe is organized on a deeper archetypal or level in his terminology. But in this case, I think, one doesn't have to look far to see that this idea of flat tires, 4 flat tires, suggests some sort of deflation or need for deflation, perhaps on the part of one or other of the members in this episode, the participants in this episode. And it does reflect the conflict that they're not going anywhere together. The car becomes presumably immobilized by these flat tires, at least for a period. So
that's so nicely said, Roderick. It's such a pleasure listening to your thinking as I hear you talk, not just the way you write, because I could almost see the emphasis on meaning as more as taking over my emphasis on psychokinetic explanation. It's the way you're thinking. I'm not going to stay there probably, but why isn't there both of them there? Why can't we think psychokinesis as well as meaning here?
Yeah, well, perhaps we can, but in Jung's understanding, he's very explicit though that he thinks that it's difficult to. In his when he wrote his essay on this, he's very explicit that that causal relationships can't be found. I think he's talking about efficient causal relationships rather than any other possible kind. So, in the absence of that, and he refers to parapsychological experiments to try and substantiate that, the Rhine experiments, where things seemed to be correlated with, effects seem to be, as it were, predicted even before it had been possible to, before that happened. So there was the sort of precognitive kinds of coincidences. So he's thought there was not the possibility of the transmission of energy in those cases, which would account for this. Now we may need to rethink that in some ways in the light of more modern science, because he had quite a restricted understanding perhaps of both causality and of energy of his time. So I would be open to myself to other alternative ways of thinking about this, but he was quite adamant that what all these different kinds of events have in common is the coincidence between the psychic component and the physical component.
One of the intriguing things I see about your thinking, especially in Revelations of Chance, it struck me that you are at the same time that you're trying to explicate Jung, just as you just were talking about, you also have very gentle criticisms of Jung and also very gentle extensions of Jung's thinking. It's the way you write, and it's the respect you have coming through for the way Jung put these ideas down. But why can't we be thinking in the same way we talked about dark energy and dark matter, that those 4 tires going out is a low probability event 4 different times? And doesn't that suggest some other causal mechanism that we don't have an answer for yet?
Well, it certainly suggests that. I suppose, and obviously coincidences have historically been prompts to seek and sometimes to find important new causal mechanisms. So it's certainly worth thinking in that way, and maybe that will be a help.
But you're not particularly interested in psi and other causal mechanisms. You much more focused on meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's particularly interesting about Jung's approach to these phenomena. I think he was interested in parapsychology, very interested, and he corresponded with Rhine. But whereas much of the parapsychological work on phenomena like coincidence and other unusual phenomena tends to be concerned with 2 main things. One, trying to prove that they actually exist, prove that these phenomena exist, and 2, try to provide an explanation of them in causal terms. Jung's approach, I think, quite helpfully, without sort of delegitimizing those ways. I mean, he is concerned and interested in those things, but it sort of shifts the focus a little bit, or rather quite a lot, and places it on the question which tends to get neglected in a lot of the psychical research and parapsychological literature, which is, what do these experiences, these events mean, or what might they mean? So, and that's, if one thinks of the fact that Jung was a psychotherapist first and foremost, this is obviously partly why he's interested in that. He wants to know how this helps at a human level. So I guess that was partly what was behind it.
And so do I. So do I.
Indeed.
And I'm a therapist. I try to understand how it helps people, how these things help people. And going to causal mechanisms with some of my patients who apparently have telepathic capacities, one of them in particular has been showing it, I try to be able to label it as that, and we don't know an answer for it, and the meaning is what's important. So we're coming to the end of this next segment, and we'll go on to a couple of more stories and other broader questions.
Okay, great.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? I'm Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and on The Secret to Everything, we will merge the practical with open investigation into all realms of the mysterious. We will talk to cutting-edge alternative health practitioners, those who inspire and motivate you in business and life, and of course, we will share stories of the paranormal, conspiracy, and cryptozoology. You will transform because of the frequency I carry, the frequencies my guests carry. Life may never be the same after you listen to this program, for the secret to everything is for you, the listener, for those who desire more in every area of their lives and believe that it can still be found. Listen and discover thesecrettoeverything.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Welcome back to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence, where we talk about synchronicity, serendipity, and meaningful coincidences. Our guest today is Roderick Main, scholar, eminent scholar in the UK, talking about synchronicity from Jung's perspective, and I like to keep hearing some of his own perspective, a little separate from the great Carl Jung. So a couple of more stories, and then we can get into some of the other broader questions, Roderick.
Okay, well, the next story concerns somebody who also wrote a book on synchronicity a long time ago, on coincidences. This is a guy called Bob Bloomfield, actually, very little-known book. He once dreamed that he was visiting Australia with his wife and some family and friends. He was being driven in a car around a large town and came eventually to a square where he says there was a church with 3 large bells hung at ground level in the open. Now, some months later, he and his wife actually did visit Australia, and on a car excursion from Melbourne with a couple of relatives, they ended up in the town of Wangaratta in North Victoria. And there they came across a church, on the floor of which, just inside the door, not actually outside, but just inside the door, there were 3 large bells, with a further 5 lying elsewhere in the church, waiting for a new bell tower to be built. So in that coincidence, we were talking about in the previous one we discussed with the writer Paul Auster with the flat tires. There was a sort of psychokinetic effect. Here, there's a sort of precognitive effect. He has a dream, and then 3 months later, what he dreamed about seems to happen in reality. So this seems to have the structure of a precognition.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Yeah. The next one I'll mention
yes.
has the structure of a sort of I suppose a telepathic experience. It concerns a psychotherapist, actually Marie-Louise von Franz, one of Jung's colleagues and followers.
Oh, that story came from.
Yeah,
okay.
that's where that comes from. And she was on vacation once when she says she suddenly had a strong visual impression of one of her patients, a patient whom she knew to be suicidal. Unable to account for the impression as having arisen by any normal chain of mental associations, she immediately sent a telegram telling the patient not to do anything foolish. 2 days later, she learned that just before her telegram arrived, the patient had gone into the kitchen and turned on the gas valve with the intention of killing herself. Startled by the postman ringing the doorbell, the patient turned the valve off again. And even more struck by the content of the telegram that the postman delivered, she didn't resume her attempt. So it's as though, in this case, that the suicidal intentions of the patient somehow transmitted themselves to the therapist, and she, unable to account for this sort of image that arose by any normal means, she sort of, and being very experienced in these things, obviously. I mean, she was one of the people following Jung who most wrote about synchronicity, actually. She then took the action of writing this telegram, which, if it hadn't been, she'd probably phrased it in a way which was just don't do anything foolish, not necessarily being too explicit, but it clearly seems to have the structure of a sort of telepathic experience, even though again there's it's also just got the basic structure of the coincidence between the inner psychic impression and the outer event to which it paralleled.
Yeah, you did use the word transmission in there, and it's kind of hard to avoid it.
Yeah,
because it seems so much like a telephone or email or something. Yeah. And there's it's hard to get away from it. We don't know how to explain it, and that's where I'm trying to go with psychosphere to some extent, to be able to explain those things. Yeah. And the meaning of this is pretty apparent. It saved the person's life.
Yeah.
And other meaning is the connection between the two of them.
Yeah.
And another meaning is Marie France's ability to pick up stuff like this.
Yeah,
What other?
I think the meaning of the sort of interconnection between them, the connection between the two of them, I think is really important here, probably because obviously we're not given very much detail about the patient, but very often these sorts of suicidal situations are when people don't feel there is anyone with whom they are in real communication, and possibly the very extraordinary nature of this communication may have communicated to the patient that she is in a sort of deep communication with her analyst, even when not present, and that maybe that was a message that helped her. This is all speculative, obviously, but
I can confirm that with another case in another book about coincidences, that the therapist, the impact on the patient who was suicidal, and the therapist made some kind of contact with him, was that the patient could feel just what it was able to say. I feel like there's somebody there with me. So it would make sense, and yes, that's that's what would happen. I call this simulpathity, this feeling the pain of another at a distance, which really is a redefining, a new name for the old definition of telepathy, which meant at a distance transmitting feeling, telepathy. So I still go for explanations. I mean, being a physician, I look for causes. It's just kind of inbred in education and experience to want to go for causes, and because make a cause and make a diagnosis, and you sometimes save patients. So there is that tendency. But let's go to some of the broader questions. What do you think the wider social and cultural significance of synchronicity is? Yeah, well, I mean, in Jung's various writings about it, he himself seems to have been motivated to get interested in this by not only his own experiences personally and with his clients, but also with his sort of his concern for what he saw as the one-sided rationalism of the culture of his day, and its its reductionistic thinking, its materialism, and its the separation of the sort of religious from the scientific, of mind from matter, and so on. This sort of deep splits and divisions that were part of the sort of culture of his day. All of these things which make up what Max Weber referred to as the sort of disenchantment, the sort of disenchanted perspective that was prevalent. And Jung, I think, in common with many people of his time. I'm sorry to interrupt on this one. It's so important what you're saying about what Max Weber said, that we used to live in an enchanted environment where there was spirit. Everything had a spirit and a consciousness and something to relate to, and we've lost that. Yeah. And Jung, in a sense, part of his project, if you like, was to see whether there were ways in which one could recover that. Yes. And he with his psychology in general, he found various ways before he introduced the concept of synchronicity into it. There were various ways in which you could render the world meaningful by seeing. Looking at, for example, what had been seen as gods and spirits and meaningful entities externally in the past, by seeing them as psychological phenomena. But when in doing that, there was a limit to the re-enchantment that could effect, because it was intrapsychic only. It was just all happening in the mind, as it were. The implication being that the outer world was still, in itself, if one looked at it, if one was brutally honest, was sort of meaningless. Was just a sort of a sort of mechanical, inert, and huge, meaningless space and place onto which we humans projected little bits of meaning in order to sort of keep ourselves warm. With the view of synchronicity, I think Jung felt that he was able to break out of that way of looking at things and to see that the meaning which we could experience intrapsychically, internally, through recognizing the forces of our psyches as the equivalents of what had previously been seen as sort of spirits and gods and so on. He found ways in which those inner forces, the archetypal patterns that he could discern in the collective unconscious, were also structuring events in the outer world. And doing that, I think he introduced this very radical and challenging notion that there might be a meaning, or a level of meaning, or something that is in relation to which it bestows meaning, which is independent or transcendent of our psyches. We're coming to the end of this segment,
Right.
And you are encouraging me so beautifully to think about the animation, the re-enchantment of our environment in the ways that you so beautifully describe. Keep up the wonderful work. It's such a pleasure to know you and to be able to talk with you today.